Hi, I'm Amy Barish. I'm Executive Director at Her Justice. At Her Justice, we stand with women living in poverty in New York City by training and mentoring volunteer attorneys to help them address individual and systemic legal needs. This morning, I'm talking to Lauren Smith Brody, who recently wrote a book called The Fifth Trimester, When the Working Mother is Born, as she puts it. And we're here to talk about issues that women and mothers face of all sizes and stripes. At Her Justice, about 73% of our clients are mothers, so it very much comes into the day-to-day work that we do. So let's start off by just asking you to talk a little bit about what is the fifth trimester and the fifth trimester movement that you were leading.
Absolutely. So the first 3 trimesters you know about, that's pregnancy. The 4th trimester is something I learned about when I was in it with my first son 10 years ago, the idea that human babies are actually born 3 months too early, and so you recreate the feeling of the womb to help to soothe them through colic, crankiness, whatever it is. I remember reading about this, and the author who introduced the idea to me was Harvey Karp, and he said repeatedly in the book, just get to 12 weeks. If you get to 12 weeks, your baby will get on something of a schedule, start sleeping a little more, wake up to the world, laugh, smile, give love back to you that you've been giving to this baby. And I thought, 12 weeks, that's FMLA, that's when I go back to work. So no, I'm not sure it's actually going to be a joy for me at that moment. And yet I knew even then that 12 weeks was more than most American women had access to. How many of us can afford to take a quarter of our year unpaid, right? In the United States, as you know, we do not have paid parental leave at a federal level. And so I went back and I struggled through, and I did it in a really open and transparent way, which is kind of the only way I knew how to be. And the surprise to me was that it actually shifted my workplace culture for the better and helped other women around me feel like they could one day work and be moms at the same time too.
I think that's such a great point, because we often talk about having it all or the work-life balance,
Right.
But even if that is a myth, you can only get closer to it if you actually talk about what you're balancing, right?
Exactly. Yeah, we can't solve problems that we don't know exist.
Yeah.
And so for me, the 5th trimester, the return to work the first 3 months back, was both a problem and an opportunity.
And I know you do a lot of consulting with private companies, law firms. Have you seen solutions that have worked for some of them? What would you advise those companies if they're trying to support the women and parents in their workplace?
Sure. So first of all, look at the numbers. Look at how women in leadership eventually pay off for you and actually increase the value of your stock and make your company more profitable. And there's all these really compelling financial reasons to keep women in the workplace. But this is the moment when they need investment in that eventual moment, this return to work. So there are all kinds of things you can do beyond getting women to what is, I consider, a humane amount of leave, which is about 6 months. If you can't do that, you can support them when they return to scaffold until they get at least to that point. You can provide not just sanitary pumping space, but pumping space that allows them to be able to work while they pump breast milk for their baby. So that there's less of a stigma around this idea that it's a break. It's not a break. You're doing all these jobs at once, right? You can think about the income that is lost, not just in terms of being away from your regular income, but if you're in a business that is all bonus driven or commission based, for sales associates, think about prorating that income that's lost too, because the women who are losing that money really, really feel it. There are all kinds of support networks that actually don't cost a lot of money to set up. I always suggest that if you're interested in setting up a mom mentor network, first of all, don't just make it like a mom's affinity group. You have to allow women to actually have the time in their schedule to be able to go be with other people, bring that bag lunch, and take that time away from their job to go bond and ultimately invest in themselves, which will help them invest in their careers. And I also suggest a mentorship model that is more of a triangle than just a direct mentor, because you really want women who have a variety of home life experiences bringing their perspective to the people they are peer mentoring. You might have a single mom who has incredibly different demands. You might have somebody who has no family living close by, which has really become the cultural norm. And so when women are mentoring themselves or mentoring each other through those different scenarios, they learn, they draw from each other's experiences. It's not just a woman in leadership who's a survivor and a subset, somebody who made it through, advising somebody who's in the thick of it right now, but actually that person in the thick of it might be teaching some things to her peers and her superiors as well.
Mm-hmm. And I know for the book you did a lot of research for different kinds of women in different kinds of situations around the country. Can you talk a little bit about both the challenges that some of the lower income women might face, like our clients, and also some of the really creative solutions that they've found for themselves?
Sure. I can't even tell you how inspired I was by these single moms I interviewed who are disproportionately represented in my book, the moms of children with special needs and the hourly wage working moms who, I have to say, you begin to realize that this concept of mom guilt is actually kind of a privileged position to take. This is not an option for these women, whether or not they're going to keep working. Of course they have to keep working, they have to pay to be able to provide for their children. And so they put aside mom guilt and they're much more able to corral the workers around them and find a common good and support each other. There was a waitress who I interviewed whose hostess and other waiters and waitresses around her pulled their tips together and covered her tables while she was in the bathroom pumping. You know, these are the stories you hear that make you really understand your privilege if you're working a desk job that doesn't have a significant physical requirement of you. And it's amazing how much we can all learn from each other at different socioeconomic points.
And I know we would love to see legislative change at the federal level. New York is moving forward a little bit. Other states could as well. What can we as women or as friends of women or as friends of potential moms, what can we do both to think about maybe the women who aren't in our economic sphere, but also within our economic sphere, what power do we have to maybe make some change?
Sure. Well, I think, I tell, this is going to sound so basic, but I tell everybody, yes, I will absolutely teach you how to move up the career ladder and make policy changes from within that make sense for everybody universally. But I will also show you that it is actually incredibly compelling just to be a little bit more transparent about your motherhood, about the challenges of it, help people understand the actual physical act of pumping breast milk, because I just believe that people do have good intentions, and people, everybody's a human, everybody was somebody's child. We have this in common, and as much as you can actually believe that as a mother, you bring strengths to your workplace and internalize that and then ask for every single thing you need with that as your ammunition inside of you, and realize that when you're asking for flexibility of hours, of location, whatever it is, it feels very loaded because this is about you and your childcare situation and not being, 5 minutes late for daycare and getting charged for that 5 minutes. But it's really about so much more than you. It's about the dad who works next to you who feels like he can't even talk about having kids, and couldn't take the parental leave that was available to him. It's about everyone who has a personal life. And so although, a big pregnant belly is the most visible workplace, personal life need we see in the workplace often, everybody has something. And so go into those conversations, negotiate fully, knowing this is not just for you, this is actually for the eventual financial benefit to your company, and also for everyone around you who may not have as much privilege.
And how, to that point that it's really affecting everybody in the workplace, I know I was really struck at a recent board meeting when a board member said, I have to leave early because my son has a game I need to go watch. And, that seems like such a little thing, but it's unusual for a man to say that out loud in a workplace. How does making sure that we provide opportunities and respect the needs of moms and pregnant women, how does that fit into how we have just a generally equitable workplace, even for those folks who may not want to have a family or expect to have a family?
Well, so you look at there's just the numbers on the wage gap. So 80% of the wage gap is actually attributed to the motherhood penalty. So we know that this is real and that there are real dollars that moms are losing out on. I think it's really important to think of the other 20% too, who are these women who are not having kids and who are also affected, and how can we as mothers support non-parents in the workplace too, and really think of this as a universal instinct and economic necessity to support each other.
Because there are some assumptions, right? I think when moms need backup, it's the women who aren't moms who end up backing them up, right?
Yeah. So the statistic is that so women who are not parents actually work longer hours than anyone else in the workplace.
Yeah.
So going into your motherhood, being aware of that, particularly if that's been you in the past, if you're, a lot of women are having babies later these days, it can be very eye-opening and help you sort of frame your argument for making this a universal ask.
Great. Well, thank you so much. Such an important topic for us, for the pro bono attorneys, and for our clients, obviously, with whom we work. So thanks for your expertise, and the book is The Fifth Trimester.
Thanks, Amy.
Thank you.